Is this an all too familiar sound in your house at 3 a.m? Well, if it is, you're not alone. Millions of sleep-deprived parents all over the world are pacing the floor with you. But in most cases, this can be easily overcome. Here's one mother's story of how her life was turned around in just one short hour.
I'm the mother of two beautiful children, Travis 11 and Nathan 1. I had always gotten up to Nathan at least once a night, but when he turned 8 months, things got really bad. We were away for our Christmas holidays when he cut his first tooth. I was getting up to him anywhere from 2 to 6 times a night, and as soon as I picked him up and rocked him, he'd be straight back to sleep within minutes. This constant back and forth went on for months. It got to the point where I was sleeping with him on the sofa bed just to get 3 or 4 hours sleep.
Maree was at her wit's end when on Nathan's first birthday, a visit to a baby health centre would change her life.
The nurse asked me if Nathan was sleeping any better. I told her no. The truth was he'd gotten worse. She asked if I had his ears checked by the doctor, which she'd suggested on my last visit. I told her I had, and that the doctor said he was fine. It was just his teeth. But I felt his sleeping problem was becoming a habit. The nurse asked me what happened when I put Nathan to sleep in his cot at night, and I told her I didn't. I give him a bottle and I lay with him in my bed until he falls asleep, and then I carry him out to his cot. And then she asked me what happens during the day, and I said the same thing. I lay with him, give him a bottle, and when he falls asleep, I carry him to bed. That's it, she said. That's the problem. He doesn't know how to sleep without you. It was one of those light bulb moments. You're right, I said. You're absolutely right. The nurse told me I needed to do controlled comforting in order for Nathan to learn how to put himself to sleep.
Maree was given the number of a baby sleep centre in one of Melbourne's major public hospitals, where she spoke to a mothercraft nurse, Rhonda Abrahams.
I told Rhonda my problem, but I also told her I was scared of breaking my baby's heart because he trusted me so much. Rhonda turned my life around in just 1 hour by showing me how to put Nathan to sleep by himself. It was an hour of heartbreak and tears, his and mine, fighting and anger.
Time to sleep.
But that night when I put Nathan down to sleep using Rhonda's methods was the first time in his life that I didn't have to get up to him through the night. He was asleep within 10 minutes. He slept from 8:30 p.m, woke briefly at midnight, cried for 30 seconds, then put himself back to sleep and didn't wake again until 7 a.m. It got easier every night to put him down and only took about 1 week before he was going down without a tear. It's been 3 months now and Nathan has slept through every night, 11, 12, 13 hours. It's great to be a mum.
Maree was so inspired by Rhonda's sleep program that she wanted to share it with mothers all over the world and decided to produce this video, It's Time to Sleep. Maree, what was it that made you think that this video would be of benefit to other parents?
The average day in hospital after having a baby is 2 days, which leaves little time to teach a new mother a good settling routine. This video not only looks at babies with problems, but it also teaches good sleeping habits right from the start. And also a lot of mothers don't have access to baby sleep centres, and if they do, there's often a very long wait. There are books available on the subject, but I personally couldn't have done what I did with Nathan out of a book. I needed to see how much crying was okay and to be reassured that I was doing it the right way.
It'd be a great backup tool too for mothers who've been to a sleep centre.
That's right, Sally. It's often very difficult to remember what you've been taught under a bit of pressure. It's also a great backup tool for dads and other caregivers.
What was it about Rhonda's sleep program that inspired you the most?
Rhonda is so dedicated and passionate about her work. She's devoted her life to getting babies to sleep, and Nathan couldn't be better proof.
Mothercraft nurse Rhonda Abrahams knows only too well what it's like to get a little one to sleep. No one taught her how to cope with a baby that wouldn't sleep. With 20 years' experience behind her, Rhonda recently won a Small Business Award for creating a baby sleep centre at one of Melbourne's major public hospitals. She's since gone on to open her own private practice, the Sandman Baby Sleep Centre. Rhonda, tell us why some babies have trouble sleeping.
We all sleep in sleep cycles consisting of blocks of sleep, being deep sleep and light sleep, where we wake and we're able to resettle. It's the babies who are being put to sleep in a different way of being maybe rocked, sleeping at the breast, rocked in the pram, sleeping in mum's bed, and once the baby goes off to sleep, they're transferred into their cot. This baby may then wake with a fright, not knowing where mum is, where the rocking's gone to. Imagine yourself being cosy in your own bed, and all of a sudden you wake up and you're sitting in the bathtub. You'd get a bit of a fright. At about 8 months, the baby's sleep cycle changes to about 60 minutes. They also experience what we call separation anxiety, where if mum's not around, the babies can become quite anxious. If these babies are being rocked off to sleep in mum's arms and resettled sleeping into the cot, they will wake in an hour's time, wake up with a fright because mum's not there. They then call out, mum goes back into the room, and not knowing any other way of settling Bubby, will pick them up, rock them back off to sleep and pop them back into their cot. These can become bad habits, and they are called sleep associations.
Now, is that what happened in Nathan's case?
It was very similar in Nathan's case. There were a few other issues. Nathan was away from home, so he was trying to be settled in a strange bed. He was also going through an 8-month separation anxiety, and he was also teething. So these all contributed to Nathan being unsettled.
And I guess children who are struggling to sleep can actually affect the whole family.
It certainly can. It can affect a husband and wife's relationship. It also affects other siblings in the family, extended family. It can be very stressful for everyone.
Tell us exactly what controlled comforting is and how it works.
Controlled comforting are techniques to help a baby learn how to sleep independently. So if they wake during the night, they're able to put themselves back off to sleep.
How long would you expect it to take before you have a visible result?
In most cases, it can be immediate results, yet it can take up to 3 weeks. The parents need to be aware they need to be persistent in the techniques they're using, and also remember that baby learns from repetition.
Rhonda, what issues are you going to cover in this video?
We will be looking at what you need to do before you begin. We'll be teaching the importance of feed, play, sleep, including how to recognise tired signs. We will be showing you how to settle babies newborn to 6 months. We will take you step by step through the controlled comforting techniques from 6 months to 12 months. And we will be showing you how to get an older toddler, 1 to 3 years, to stay in their bed.
Let's get started. Make sure your baby is in good health. Don't introduce any new sleeping techniques if you aren't sure your baby is 100% well. If your baby becomes ill during the process, stop and start again when your baby is better. Be sure you yourself are ready to begin. Don't start if you're feeling under the weather or have a busy schedule that won't allow you to follow through with the program. Make sure your partner is in agreement with you in deciding to change your baby's sleep pattern. Have a person who can support you when you start. If it's not your partner, maybe a family member or perhaps a friend. Have caregivers watch the video as well. They can play an important role in getting the new routine to work. Make sure your baby's room is kept bright during the day and darkened when your baby is going down to sleep. Have a nightlight so your baby recognises their surroundings when they wake. Make sure your baby has a clean nappy. Remove all toys from the cot because remember we're here to sleep, not to play. And lastly, remember to persevere. It will work, and soon both you and your baby will be much happier for it.
The rule is simply feeding is in mother's arms, down is where the baby plays, and the cot is where baby sleeps. A regular routine is the surest way for a baby to learn. Once Bubby has finished the feed, Place him on the floor for some playtime. Watch for tired signs, jerky movements, whistling, rubbing eyes, arching the back. Remember, an overtired baby can be harder to settle. In the evening, replace playtime with a bath. Remember, the bath is one of your best scheduling tools. Have some quiet time before settling the baby. Story time, some soft singing, but remember it's very important that you settle baby awake into the cot so he can have a look around and be familiar where he's going to be sleeping.
It is now time to begin our settling routines, starting with settling the baby newborn to 6 months.
Michelle, Cooper has now had a feed, he's had a playtime, he's shown us tired signs, it's now time to settle. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap him, we're going to place him into the cot, and I'm going to show you some settling techniques to do. Could you place Cooper just over here, Michelle? Now remember, with wrapping, the reason we wrap him is just to take control of his hands, because if he starts throwing his hands around, he's going to hit himself in the face and it's going to make him more erratic and more upset. Remember, with SIDS, they recommend not to wrap and not to lay baby on their side. That's fine for a baby who's sleeping properly, but for a baby who's not sleeping properly and we need to implement some techniques, we need to wrap him. But we are going to roll him onto his back once he goes off to sleep. Okay, so we're just going to pop his hands up here, just at his chest, and just bring some blankets over, just gently. And just bring the blanket over, so we've actually got control of that hand. And the other one over. We can keep all this part loose so he's not tightly wrapped. And then we're going to place him into the cot, okay? We're going to roll him onto his side, Michelle, just so we can do some settling techniques. And once again, just be aware of SIDS. Have the cot well ventilated. We haven't got a pillow into the cot. Nothing's going to fall down. There's no toys, and we can now implement some settling techniques. It's important once we start that we have a little look at our clock, just to say we're giving him 15 minutes to try and settle. If Cooper hasn't settled in 15 minutes, we're going to pick him up, give him a quick cuddle, roll him over onto the other side and start again. It's important we put him on the side so we're not making that eye contact with both you and Bubby. So while he's crying, we just pop our hands on him, Michelle, and just give him a little pat. Just a gentle pat. You can stroke, you can pat him on the bottom, you can pat his shoulders. Remember, once he's in the cot, we then just lower our tone and we just shh, 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 shh. Now remember, Michelle, this crying can go on for 15 minutes. It's okay to let Bubby cry. No harm will come to him. You're very close by. And if we do have to pick him up, we'll give him a quick cuddle and we start again. Because remember, he's had his bottle, he's had his play, and he's very tired. Michelle, he's now been crying for 15 minutes. What I recommend, he hasn't settled, so what I recommend is we pick him up, give him a quick cuddle, just walk him around the room a little bit. Don't let him go to sleep in your arms, because that's what we're trying to prevent, and then we'll start again. So you happy to pick him up, Michelle, and just give him a little bit of a cuddle? Remember, after 15 minutes, and it's a long time to let the baby cry for 15 minutes, no harm will come to him, and you're very close by. So if he hasn't responded in 15 minutes, it's important to pick him up, give him a cuddle, reassure him, and that's also for yourself. It's hard to have your baby crying for 15 minutes. Okay, when he's settled and you're happy, pop him back in the cot, but pop him onto the other side, which means we then have to go around the other way of the cot. That's just alternating his sides that he sleeps on. Okay, pop him back in, Michelle, when you're ready. Okay, Michelle, pop him in now. And what we'll do is just give him a little bit of a pat. Just keep your hands on his shoulders and just give him a little bit of a pat, just till he stops crying. Once he stops crying, just keep your hands on him. If he remains quiet, take your hands off. The whole goal is not to put him to sleep, Michelle. It's for Cooper to learn to settle himself independently. So once he stops crying, stop your patting. If he remains quiet, start patting again. Now remember, we can do this for 15 minutes And once again, if he hasn't settled, we'll pick him up, give him another cuddle, and then resettle him again. Okay, Michelle, now Cooper's had a feed, had a play, showed us some tired signs. We've wrapped him and popped him into the cot. He didn't respond after 15 minutes, so I encourage you to pick him up, give him a cuddle, place him back into the cot, a little bit of patting if need so, and now Cooper's gone off to sleep. Remember, there's nothing wrong with letting him cry that 15 minutes. You're close by, you've got hands on, but it's very important that we don't pat him off to sleep. Once he stops crying, step back and let him finish his sleep by himself. This will teach him to sleep independently. Michelle, Cooper's now sleeping, so what we're going to do is roll him onto his back, loosen his wraps and let him to continue his sleep. Here's a couple of important things to remember with babies newborn to 6 months of age. The use of a dummy is entirely up to the parent. However, it may be the cause of a baby waking, and the constant loss of a dummy and its use to resettle a baby back to sleep can become a sleep association. If a dummy is used, try to limit it to bedtime and remove it once baby has settled before they fall asleep. When a baby who's responded to our settling techniques wakes during their sleep cycle, it's important to resettle them using the same procedures. During the day, if baby has slept for less than an hour, try to resettle them for 20 minutes, but if they don't respond, they can be picked up. The important part of the process is for baby to be given clear messages that it's time to sleep, because babies learn from repetition.
Controlled comforting, 6 to 12 months.
Sharon, what I'm going to show you today is a technique called controlled comforting. It's a program developed that will help Julian sleep independently. I'm going to talk you through the techniques first. What we do is we settle Julian awake into the cot. It's very important that he goes awake into the cot. Then we're going to leave the room. The first time we leave the room, we wait outside for 2 minutes for baby to fall asleep. If baby remains awake and crying, we come in and again use our controlled comforting techniques for 2 minutes. We then wait outside the room for 4 minutes. If baby is still crying, we come into the room again and use our techniques, this time for 4 minutes. We then continue following the pattern. Next time it's 6 minutes outside the room, 6 minutes inside the room. Then 8 minutes outside and 8 minutes inside. Next time 10 minutes outside and 10 minutes inside. 10 minutes is the maximum time baby should be left alone crying. Before we begin, there's just a few things I need to talk to you about, and that's a safety issue with the cot. SIDS recommend that we remove all the toys from the cot, so I'm going to take those out of the cot before we start. I'm just going to place them here. And also, it's very important making of the cot. We're short sheeted, which means we bring the baby right up the end of the cot. So if he does get under the sheet, he can't go any further than the railings. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly make up this cot and just show you what's recommended. There's no bumpers, as you can see, Sharon. It's not safe to have all the bumpers around the cot. And what I've done, I've made this into like a bit of a slip. So we put Bubby in there and he can't go any further than the bottom. Also, there's no sharp edges. There's nothing threatening on the cot, so it's safe to have him in. Okay, are you happy to place Bubby in the cot? Just on his back for me there. And lie him down. Just tell him it's time to sleep. It's time to sleep. Mummy's here and it's time to sleep.
Go non-eyes? Yeah.
Okay.
Go non-eyes?
Now what we're going to do, we're just going to leave the room and just see what he does. Don't bother if he pushes the blankets off himself. Let's leave him. Let's leave the room, and if need to be, we'll come straight back in.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
Sharon, we've been outside for 2 minutes, so what we're doing now is Julian's been protesting, been crying, so we've got to come in after 2 minutes. And what we're going to do is going to roll him over onto his side, face baby away from you to avoid eye contact. Keep laying baby down. Have one hand on the shoulder and keep patting his leg with the other hand. Keep repeating, it's time to sleep, it's time to sleep. Keeping your hand on his shoulder, repeat, shh, shh, shh. Just keep our hands nicely but firmly on him. Give him a little bit of a pat. If he stops crying, it's very important to stop patting, because otherwise you're going to pat him off to sleep. And when he wakes up, if the patting's not there, he's going to yell out to you. It's time to sleep. If baby's dummy pops out, go ahead and put it back in. And as hard as it is for mum, all the crying is okay. Keep patting baby's back, and remember, he doesn't know what he has to do yet. We are teaching him how to sleep independently. We've now been with Julian for 2 minutes and he still hasn't settled, so it's time to leave the room again, this time for 4 minutes. Okay, let's go. Julian is still unsettled after 4 minutes, so it's a matter of being persistent and trying to settle him yet again. Now Julian still hasn't responded, so this time, as hard as it may seem, you must wait outside for 6 minutes. As I explained earlier, the time you spend outside the room increases by 2 minutes each time until you reach 10 minutes. And then you can come in and check on baby every 10 minutes. When baby is settled but still awake, gently remove your hand and leave the room. Sharon, now that he's asleep, we're going to cover him up and just let him continue sleeping. Sharon, now Julian's settled. It did take a little time for the techniques to work, but I can't stress the importance. If you want the program to be successful, you've got to be repetitive with your techniques. Your long-term goal is to get Julian to sleep independently in his own cot. How do you feel about that?
It's going to be hard, but I know it's going to be long-term, so that's what's most important.
Okay, so you're happy to continue with the techniques? Excellent.
Thank you.
A few final things to remember with babies 6 to 12 months. During the settling process, your baby's protest cry will at times continue for up to 20 minutes without stopping. However, once baby has reached their peak, they will begin to respond to settling techniques and become quieter. And as you start introducing the settling techniques, these quiet periods are also indicators that your baby is responding to a revised pattern of settling to sleep. In other words, the controlled comforting is working. A rollover feed is a feed given to a baby before bed in the hope they will sleep all night without another feed. It's introduced to a baby who is waking frequently throughout the night and won't resettle without a feed. The idea is to settle baby early at say 7:30 p.m. using our settling techniques. Once baby has settled and is sleeping, wait till about 10 p.m. Pick baby up and offer a feed. Don't talk, put on a light or change a nappy unless it's dirty. You don't want to overstimulate baby. You want them to remain sleepy. Once the feed is finished, resettle baby back to the cot, relaxed but not sleeping. And if need be, use our settling techniques again. If baby does wake during the night, don't offer a feed. Just try to resettle them using our techniques. During the day, try to settle baby for 1 hour. But after this, if they haven't responded, open the curtains, take them out of their cot and get on with your day. Try our settling routine again next sleep. During the night, I can't stress enough to be persistent. After 1 hour, if baby hasn't responded, offer a drink of water, give them a reassuring cuddle, and continue on with our techniques, starting at 10 minutes inside the room and 10 minutes outside the room.
Getting the older toddler to stay in their bed. Getting an older toddler to stay in their own bed is a real problem for many parents. They often wind up sleeping in your bed every night, or you end up sleeping in their bed. And letting children fall asleep in front of the television, then carrying them to their bed, is another bad habit many parents allow to happen, simply to avoid a conflict. These are all sleep associations, and the aim is to let go of these associations and introduce the new ones. It's important to establish a regular routine, such as dinner, bath time, which is a great scheduling tool, a quiet play, a drink, cleaning teeth, and then the toilet or a clean nappy.
Look at these muscles.
Yeah, he's got big muscles.
Next, choose a story or two. It's important to set the number of stories to be read before you begin and stick to it. You must be in control, not the child. Tuck your child in, say goodnight, and let them know it's time to sleep. But say you leave the room and your toddler gets straight out of bed. What do you do now?
Hi Maree, you've been having some problems with Jack sleeping, is that
Yes,
right?
we have, yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit about what's happening?
Well, he creeps out of bed, but once we've settled him, he gets up and sneaks downstairs.
Okay, end up in your bed of a night?
He does, yeah.
And because you're so tired, does he sometimes
He
stay
does,
there?
yeah.
Okay, today I'm going to teach you some techniques that will help Jack establish a pattern of sleeping on his own. Those techniques involve a little bit of controlled crying, which means if Jack hops out of his bed, then you need to be aware of this and put him straight back into his bed.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's not to say it's going to work straight away. We want you to be repetitive with what you do, which at times you may have to go in and out of the room 100 times. So what we're going to do, if Jack does hop out of bed, pop him straight back in, stay outside the room, wait for him to hop out again, do it again, back into bed. If he doesn't hop out and remains quiet, we can have a little peep in the room to see if he's settled. If he comes out of the room, once again, we go back into the room with some techniques. What you need to remember, Maree, is you need to be repetitive with your techniques. If it means that you have to go in and out 100 times, be prepared to do so. You happy with that?
Yeah, look, if it gets him sleeping through the night and out of our bed in the middle of the night, that would be fantastic.
I'm sure once you've tried Rhonda's proven sleeping techniques, you'll discover they're an invaluable tool in helping to settle a troubled sleeper. If you'd like further information on purchasing a copy of this video, you can contact us at our website or phone this number. If you would like to contact Rhonda Abrahams at the Sandman Baby Sleep Centre, you can call her on this number. And to mothers and babies all over the world, good night.